We're surrounded today by more messages, more content, and frankly, more noise than ever before. But when it comes to culture, noise doesn't create change. People do. So how do leaders cut through the noise and build a workplace where everyone feels heard, valued, and included? In this episode, I'm joined by Dr. Jeffrey Thompson, a project management leader who truly understands the dynamics of diverse and inclusive teams. Dr. Jeffrey brings deep insights to what it really takes to create psychological safety and why listening, not just talking, is one of the most powerful tools a leader has. I think that psychological safety is a key component to any team dynamic as well. And I like the fact that you talked about those one-on-one conversations leaders can have with team members, or I think you call it a listening tour, where a senior leader goes around and just spends time listening to people's stories. And I remember several CEOs at Canada Post who did just that. They would go out onto the shop floor or come into the environment, and they wouldn't just walk around with the senior leaders. I was a junior manager at the time, and I remember I had an entire day with the CEO, an entire day to take that CEO around to the different post offices that I managed, to introduce them to my staff, let him talk to my staff about, their stories and their communities and so on. And it was a powerful day. And for the CEO to take an entire day from a short tour to our region and spend that with me, I was very fortunate, but I was also thankful that they got to experience the different teams that I work with.
Yeah. And then, if you're talking about that years later, I think about each member of that team who had that opportunity to interact. So it's not someone up in the ivory tower that, you see pictures of and don't get to talk to. I mean, and that's so powerful though. For us, we also have what we call, quarterly innovation week, where we're looking at knowledge sharing and that sort of stuff. And to your point, not everybody is able to attend each and every session, because the whole idea of Innovation Week is, what bit of knowledge we could share with each other, where we could improve in terms of the way we work, in terms of the process, and in terms of teams, etc. But the fact that not everybody can attend, they said, what, let's make sure we record each one of these sessions. So if you attend a session and say, oh, I'd love to hear what's going on in this other session, the recordings are maintained and put on a web page where you can go back at your own pace and pick up the recording and say, let me listen to this recording. And then if I need to have any more questions, I know who the presenter is, I can go and learn from the presenter. So that's another way that we set up that continuous improvement culture.
So let's bring that back to the whole idea of DEI and social media, and how that you are in leveraging what the message you want to send to people using social media and recorded, and because how we communicate and the history we have, it's not just in books anymore. It's now on video, it's on the internet, it's on podcasts, on webcasts, like on webcasts like this one, right? How are you leveraging the tools?
I'm leveraging tools. I mean, I benefit from different organizations, learning from them, because again, there's some sessions that we sign up for, and unfortunately you can't attend, but thankfully they're recorded. So we try to record our information so we can share it out with our distribution list to say, here's some nuggets of information that could benefit you. So we're creating that ability so that people not only can learn synchronously, but also asynchronously in terms of what's out there, right? And then you're using social media to share whatever knowledge you gain, because what I might have come across in my inbox might not be the same as what other people are sharing. So, using different tools like WhatsApp and other means to say, what, by the way, did anyone see this? Let's talk about it. Let's have that discussion, that conversation. So this is another reason why I make an effort to be as open as possible to as many groups as possible, and then see ways that I can cross-pollinate the knowledge that I gain with others as they cross-pollinate their thoughts and ideas with me as well.
The conversation we've had and you and I met through LinkedIn. And so I think that network building is an important component of being able to share the message and recognize that, in being able to, I use the term connect the dots, right? Hey, I've got, I've learned a piece of nugget here and this person could benefit from knowing what that is. Let me connect to that person and talk about that. And then their network now, it's about expanding your connection and your network. And I think social media has certainly amplified that. The question I have is how do we make sure it's not just all noise, right? How do we make sure that it's not noise, but it's actioned activities that drive change in behavior? We know we've been talking about this mental paradigm shift that needs to occur for a true shift in culture, a true shift in thinking, a true adoption of inclusion and diversity and equity and so on. How do we get through the noise?
Yeah. And I think how we get through noise is through repetition and then getting alignment with some of the senior leaders. So, we were talking at the top about laws that had to be enacted, whether it be, the modification to the Immigration Act, right? That's how we make sure that there's no noise. I mean, we use the example of the seatbelt law where, we had to ensure that seatbelt laws were put in place because there are certain guidelines to behavior that we need to have being non-negotiable,
right,
in order to move forward. Because again, a lot of people are not necessarily as empathetic as they should be.
So we think about the bell
to
curve, right? So if we think about the bell curve, but we always talk about, those resistors. You have those early adopters, you have resistors, you have innovators, and so on. Where do you think we are as a Canadian society on that as it relates to this topic?
I think most of us, I mean, when I was looking at the United Nations sustainability goals, and there are some there's one that covers gender, I think it's 5 and 10 if I remember, and then one that covers basically diversity, equity, inclusion, and they have a dashboard which has different colors for different countries of the world. So I see Canada as there are countries that are really, really bad, which are red, and then countries that are orange, and then countries that are more on the green side. Canada is more in the orange space, as it were, based on the United Nations sustainability goals. So we're not perfect, but at least I think for the most part we are accepting, and I think this is why we're so multicultural as a country, and people tend to want to come here because they know that it's not a melting pot where they're going to be forced to be a certain way. They can be themselves as long as there's a certain level of decency that they apply. So I think I believe in Canada, we're in a good spot, which still needs to be improved.
That's awesome. Well, I've enjoyed talking with you a lot.
Same here.
I really have. If you're getting value out of this video, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit subscribe, and please leave me your comment because I'm always anxious to hear from them and I will answer every comment.